I'd like to welcome everybody to our Ward 5 virtual town hall. I want to thank you all for attending, especially Ernie Jetty, the alderman from Ward 5, who I know is on the call. I see Gloria McCarthy I don't know if there are any other public officials on, but Dan Toomey is a state rep. I see his name here. Anyway, thank you. I see Paula Johnson from the Board of Ed. So thank you all for coming. So, of course, I used to hold these town halls, ward town halls, in real places every year, usually at the main Dunstable School for Ward 5. But in view of the pandemic, we've started to do this virtually. And we try to keep it to about an hour. I talk a little bit about what's going on with the city. And then we take some questions, some submitted questions through the internet or via email, and we try to take some of those as well. Well, it's hard to talk about the city without addressing, of course, the pandemic. We've all been working together in Nashua to combat the pandemic, to try to limit the spread of the virus, to protect our friends and our families and our whole community for almost a year now. I am proud of the way Nashua responded to the pandemic. Everybody has come together, has worked together to try to keep the community safe. We have a public health department led by Bobby Bagley and Kim Bernard. They in the public health department have done a wonderful job, have worked really hard 7 days a week for all these months. They have done weekly or even more often clinics to test people for COVID-19. They are now involved in vaccinating people at various clinics. There's a community clinic later in the week for particularly high-risk people who are at high risk. Public health department has cared for all the people who have tested positive, keeps track of all those cases. Now, the good news is that the number of cases is now down a little bit from the peak that we had in January. December, January, we went to a point where we had almost 600 active cases in Nashua. Now this week it's a little under 300. So that's good news, but we've had 74 people pass away, 74 Nashuans, 74 families who suffered a very grievous loss. One of them, and I see Lisa photo from Public Works on here, one of them was Andre Pelletier, who was part of the Nashua family. He had worked for Public Works for 46 years and had done a variety of jobs. He was really well liked, had a great sense of humor. You know, he was a very hardworking employee. He contracted COVID-19, not at the workplace, but somewhere else, and he passed away after a couple of weeks. And that's just one example of the kind of the tragedy and the loss that we have suffered. But in working on COVID-19, we have used a fact-based approach. We've followed the medical experts and the public health experts. We've made one thing very clear, and that is that wearing masks is a necessity if we want to contain and limit the spread of the virus as much as we can. I mean, we all want our economy to open, our schools to open, but we also want to keep our community, our families safe, our neighbors. And it's clear that to do that, everybody needs to wear their masks. And in the end, people need to get vaccinated so we can get beyond this disease and get back to normal, so to speak. Well, some of the other things that are going on in the city, we are getting into budget season right now. The city is facing some significant budget challenges. We've had rising healthcare costs for a couple of years, but we've developed a plan to deal with those, and that seems to be working. The state, though, has sent us some bad news. You might know that over the years, the state just continually raises property taxes by pushing more costs onto the cities and towns. Now, what we've been hit with this year is and this is the worst possible time in the middle of a pandemic. We've been hit with the fact that they're raising the city's pension bill. This is unrelated to an increase in any wages. Increase the city's pension bill by $4.4 million in order to build up the assets in their system. And they've notified us that we may suffer a $7.5 million decrease in school aid. So when you put those things together, almost 12%, that represents a 5.5% tax increase put on us by the state of New Hampshire on the hardworking taxpayers of Nashua. So we are working hard with our delegation, the members of our legislative delegation, like Dan Toomey, who I think is on here, to try to reverse some of that, to try to get some relief. There are various bills. I've testified numerous times, most recently today on a bill that could affect us financially. So we're working hard to try to reverse it, but we don't know how that's going to come out. There are some other things that certainly you should know about. The master plan is going forward. We are doing the first master plan in 20 years. The last one was around 2000. We're calling it Imagine Nashua, and what we're looking for is for you, the people who live here, our Nashuans, to get engaged with the master plan. You can do this virtually online. And we're asking the question, how would you like the city to change, or would you like it to stay the same? I mean, what are your hopes for the city? What are your dreams for the city over the next 10 or 20 years? And there are many ways that you can get involved, all of it basically at this point virtually. We have a meeting coming up to talk about Daniel Webster College, for example. Even though that's owned by someone in China, we at least would like to take a look at that. What would make sense there? The gentleman who owns it has not done anything significant, has not really been very much in contact with the city, but we still would like to get your input and, of course, Ward 1's input as to how that parcel might be used in the future. Now, Matt Sullivan, who is the city planning director, I believe is on the call, and I'll ask him to tell you a couple of minutes about the master plan in a moment. A few other things that are going on are the Performing Arts Center is about to begin in its construction. I know that some people are skeptical about this project, but I wanted to take a moment to tell you why, at least I think it's a good idea. The purpose of it is to help us build a stronger downtown economy, help us build a stronger tax base downtown, now, which benefits everyone. Now, some people have the idea that downtown takes in, needs more in taxes and services than it generates, but actually that's not the case. Nashua, the downtown Nashua, the central business district, about a quarter square mile, generates already about $6 million in property taxes. This includes the mill yards and the blocks right around Main Street. There's no way that the city spends $6 million on services in that quarter square mile. Very few school children, our most expensive city service. All commercial garbage. City doesn't really pick up garbage in that area. And of course, police and fire, like everywhere else. Now, if we can build more value downtown, and that's what generates property taxes, the value of property. If we can build more value downtown, we can generate maybe instead of 6 million, 8 million, or 10 million, and help us support services throughout the city. We know it will attract private investment, and that's already happened. Now, the Performing Arts Center the debt service will cost about $1 million a year, but that's out of a $280 million budget. Because we're paying off debt all the time, every year, even though the Performing Arts Center the debt will be coming online, the amount we pay for debt service, principal interest on city debt, schools, and other city buildings, all the general fund the debt that's funded by property taxes. The budget for that is about 16 million this year, and it's going to be about 16 million next year, because we pay off debt, then periodically borrow a little more money. Now, I said that the Performing Arts Center has already been successful in generating private investment. One housing builder, his name is Peter Floats, came to the city and wanted to proceed with housing on School Street. And the reason he did that was because he'd been in Manchester with some development, but he's from Florida. The reason he did it is because of the Performing Arts Center. Now, he's investing over $20 million in the city. This will bring in $400,000 or so in taxes, and that's just one single development. We know that we know that we can use this and other things we're doing downtown to attract more development, more private investment, which in the end will generate property taxes which exceed the debt service on the Performing Arts Center. And the Performing Arts Center, at least I'm confident, will pay for itself. Now, I know that some people can remain skeptical of that, but I want you to know that we do have a strategy. This is an economic development, jobs, stronger economy strategy that we're trying to employ with that project. There are other things, of course, going on in the city. We had outdoor dining over the summer. We want to do that again. That really helped. We're committed to helping the small businesses in the city that have really suffered. I will always remember what they've gone through and what employees have gone through. We've done the outdoor dining and may have saved many restaurants and other businesses with that. Also our residents, Nashvans really enjoyed it, I think. But we've assembled a COVID-19 impact fund, which federal money of various sources, where we've made many loans to restaurants, cafes, dentist offices, other businesses who have really been hurt by the closures and all of the restrictions related to the pandemic. So the small businesses are kind of the soul of the community. They employ a lot of people, and we want to make sure that they survive as much as possible. Now, I think I will stop there and begin to take questions. But before I do, I was going to ask Matt Sullivan to talk a little bit about the master plan, and then ask Ernie if he has anything he'd like to add at the present time.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Alderman Jetty, for hosting this virtual town hall this evening. I'm very happy to be here. My name is Matt Sullivan. I'm the Planning Department Manager for the City of Nashua, here this evening on behalf of the Community Development Division. I'm thankful for all of you taking the time out of your Thursday evening to hear a bit about what's going on in the city. I'd like to take just a few minutes to share some information about the Imagine Nashua initiative that the Mayor mentioned previously. It's an initiative that the city is undertaking to update what's known as its comprehensive master plan for the community. The master plan is really the outline of a future vision for the community and includes specific goals and strategies that help guide future decision-making for programs, assets, infrastructure, really for a long period of time moving forward. This specific initiative is founded extensively on public engagement, community engagement, and inclusivity. And that's intended to really help inform the development of an innovative vision for the community and the city of Nashua moving forward in a way that hasn't been done as part of prior plans necessarily. This plan specifically is focused on equity, resilience, and climate protection as its core values that will guide development and the future face of Nashua as we move forward. Those values will also be woven in throughout the plan and help shape the goals and strategies that actually come out of the document that we create. And they'll really be formed around 6 specific topic areas that we'll be doing a lot of extensive work on in the coming months particularly. And those are land use and development, housing, economic growth, mobility and access, open space and natural resources, and of course, arts and culture that the mayor spoke about just a moment ago in the critical piece of the Performing Arts Center. We kicked off the Imagine Nashua process in August of 2020, which was a different time, even being about 9 months ago. It certainly was started under different circumstances. And we hope to have this plan finalized by July of 2021 and move into implementing the plan shortly thereafter. As I mentioned, community engagement is a huge part of what we're trying to do. And particularly with the circumstances of COVID, we're making a special effort to get out in the community and have meaningful conversations, many of which are virtual, to ensure that the interests of all Nashua residents and stakeholders are included within this plan that we develop. We've met virtually with many organizations around the city and individuals specifically. And we've also had 2 large public meetings. And I know that a few folks on the virtual town hall this evening have had an opportunity to attend those. And we certainly urge others to as well. Obviously, because of COVID, we're trying to make as many of our resources available as possible about the plan. And we're doing that through the plan's website, imaginenashua.nh.gov, and it's imagine.nashuanh.gov. And there you can find resources related to the plan, recordings of meetings, presentations, and other materials that you might find helpful. And of course, I'll leave my information with this group this evening so you can contact me directly. The website also has a draft of the vision statement for the plan, as well as some of the goals that we're starting to talk about within those 6 topic areas: housing, economic development, that I mentioned before. We're always happy to take comments. Those can be submitted online or certainly via email as well. And I'm happy to take comments via the chat box or later as we go into questions this evening. You can also submit project comments through the website in a bit of a different way. I think a lot of folks are familiar with sort of mapping that's out there right now that allows you to submit a comment. We actually have a tool that's online, and we're happy to help walk you through that if you'd like. We have a tool that allows you to submit a comment in a specific location in the city. We're looking for comments about things that we might want to improve, enhance, or protect moving forward as a community, and we hope that that will directly drive the goals and recommendations that come out of the master plan. But again, it allows you to actually leave a comment, for example, in Mindfall Park, perhaps in the downtown area, perhaps at Greeley Park, and tell us exactly what you'd like to see in those areas so that we can form, the most complete and inclusive vision and goal moving forward for those areas. As the mayor mentioned, we'll have a few unique opportunities for engagement in the coming months. One is our next large public meeting, which will be on March 2nd and focus on the 6 topic areas that I mentioned earlier, and start to actually get into some of the specific strategies that we'd like to use to get closer to our future vision within those 6 topic areas. Then on April 6th, there'll be some really exciting scenario or area planning that we'll be doing. The mayor mentioned the Daniel Webster College area. That's one of the specific areas that we'll be doing some strategic thinking about, in addition to some of the corridors in the community like DW Highway, Amherst Street, about what we'd like to see there in the future for our city. And that will be really specific on those geographic areas. Information about those meetings will be available through the project website in the coming weeks as we roll out more material. And again, I'll share my contact info so you have an opportunity to reach out to me directly. I just want to wrap up by saying that community input is again key to what we're trying to do through the Imagine Nashua Master Plan. We really want you to get involved in whatever format you feel comfortable, and we're happy to have one-on-one conversations with any resident or stakeholder weighing in on the goals or the master plan strategies. Thank you again for your time this evening to very briefly address what is a very large and comprehensive project for the city. I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have, of course, and we hope that you get involved. Thank you so much.
All right. Well, thank you, Matt. Before I turn to Ernie, maybe I wanted to mention that we've been working hard on a greener Nashua, reduce the carbon emissions of the city and reduce costs for our taxpayers. And of course, we've done solar projects on a few buildings. There's a conversion to LED lighting at the high schools that's going to go forward. And I just received documentation of the fact that we have reduced the carbon emissions from the public works vehicles, as well as the transit vehicles. When you put them together, we've reduced the emissions by 1,600 tons per year, about 40% over the last 4 to 5 years. We're working on that all of the time, and I just saw that documentation, so I thought I'd mention that. But Ernie, I see you're here, and do you have anything you'd like to add at the moment?
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you for arranging for this town hall meeting to give the residents of Ward 5 the opportunity to ask questions and voice their opinions. It's important for people to let us know what they're thinking and what their views are on the various issues facing the city. We're in the middle of a parking study, which right now is specifically looking at overnight parking in the city. So basically, right now, the law is that you cannot park for more than 2 hours between the hours of midnight and 6 a.m. So on public streets, and except in the middle, in the center of the city, there are a lot of areas that allow for parking by permit, overnight parking by permit. But in Ward 5 right now, that doesn't exist at all. The city does have, the parking department does have the opportunity, or provides the opportunity for people to call in if you've got a special situation. You've got someone staying overnight on a temporary basis. You can call the parking enforcement division and let them know about that, and they won't ticket you if they happen to be patrolling in your area. But what the city is looking at right now is, should there be a change in the overall ordinance regarding parking? And so the opportunity for Ward 5 residents was a week or so ago. And unfortunately, only 2 Ward 5 residents tuned into that Zoom meeting. But it's not too late. You can let the parking department know by emailing them, or you can email me and let me know, how you feel. Do you like it the way it is? No parking at all during those hours, or would you like a street by street situation where if the people on a particular street want to have overnight parking, they could, we could do that. So anyway, let us know how you feel about that, because it's going to be coming before the Infrastructure Committee and the Board of Aldermen sometime later this year. The other thing, you've heard Matt talk about the master plan. Here's another opportunity for you to give your opinion and to give your feelings about what you would like the city to do. Here's an opportunity to directly address issues of concern to you with the city, and hopefully something can be done about it. I won't. This is another meeting where it's an opportunity for you residents to voice your opinions. So I'm not going to say anything else other than Mayor. I know you would want to note that Mike Peterson, one of our state representatives from Ward 5, is also with us tonight. And with that, I'll stop and look forward to hearing what you residents have to say. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Mike. I see now that you're on the call too. Thank you for joining us. Well, we did get a couple of questions submitted in advance regarding, and I see the PDs here. We're fortunate to have them, about speeding. Donna Hall from Main Dunstable Road wrote in to say that her mailbox has been hit a bunch of times. Her yard's been damaged. There's a lot of speeding on Main Dunstable Road. And Pat Gallipo from Gendron Drive submitted a email or a written question or comment about speeding on Gendron. She says that they use, people that there's always been a lot of speeding on Gendron. You can use it to cut through from West Hollis Street down to other neighborhoods. And she says it's gotten worse since the high school, of course, since the high school opened, but that was some time ago. In any event, could the PD please, I know you're out there working hard on many, many things, so I don't want to take anything away from you. But could you address these speeding problems and give us your thoughts on those?
Absolutely, Mr. Mayor. Captain Bolton couldn't make it today. My name is Lieutenant Pete Urban. I'm the second shift division supervisor. Also with me is Sergeant Chris DiTullio. So I know this has come up in other ward meetings, and we've expressed that that we understand the situation. We've recently gotten a full staff, so that's going to give us the opportunity to have more directed patrols regarding traffic enforcement. We have already made some changes to prioritize traffic enforcement with the complement of a full staff at the PD. We've already begun, and we're going to continue to assign officers to problem areas. So with the opportunity of attending these ward meetings, we can actually get some input as to where some of these issues are occurring. And then we can direct or assign specific officers to those areas. So again, Main Dunstable will certainly be one of our focuses, along with Gendron Drive, as we kind of move forward and to get people assigned to these directed patrols.
We will send you the written questions we got so you can get the reports directly and then hopefully follow up on that. So thank you very much to the PD.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Is there anyone who would like to ask a question now? Anybody who's on the call?
Yes.
Yes. Who go?
This Audrey Gervais. I live at 590 West Hollis Street. I had also submitted a question about the speeding. We have a lot of city buses, a lot of city trucks that run to the landfill that are going way over the posted speed limits. I don't know if that can be monitored. The normal speed is way out of control.
Well, Audrey, of course, we don't want city vehicles to be speeding. You're certainly right about that. Now, we can follow up with, I don't think there's anyone from Transit, Nashua Transit, the buses, on the call, but we will follow up with them to talk to them about that problem. But I see Ms. Photo, Lisa Photo, Director of Public Works, is on. She might be able to address the question of other city trucks, city public works trucks, I think you're talking about, on the way to the landfill or the like.
Yes, and the transit buses. I've called a couple of times and left some messages about the speeds that the buses are going by.
We're definitely going to follow up on the transit buses. But again, there's no one from the transit system on the call right now, but we will talk with them tomorrow and have them talk with their drivers. Lisa, but Audrey, are you finding public works vehicles you think are speeding, or just the transit buses?
I've seen the orange trucks going towards the dump.
Yeah, those are public works. All right, Lisa, you have any thoughts on that?
I don't, but we do have AVL in all of our vehicles, so I certainly can check back and determine if they're speeding or not. So I'll look into that for you.
Now, people may not know what ABL is, so why don't you explain what
ABL? So the AVL is in all of our trucks, and what it does is it allows us to monitor the trucks, so we know where they are at all times, and we can detect the speeds that they're traveling.
And it's like a wireless system that, so there's some kind of unit in the truck which communicates via the cloud or something with Public Works central office. So and it creates a record, a digital record, so they can figure out who's doing what at all times.
Yes.
So, Audrey, Lisa will check into that and probably can determine actual speeds or something pretty close.
I can.
And if people are speeding, we can definitely.
Hi.
Now I see Paula Johnson has her digital hand up.
Yeah, I figured I'll get the digital one up at this point. A couple of concerns I have. Number one, I agree with Audrey about the speeding on West Hollis Street. They're still running through the red lights over there on West Hollis Street by Ledgewood Hills, and I've been complaining about that for many years. So I'm hoping maybe we can get that addressed finally. I'm also concerned, I'm one of these skeptics about the Performing Arts Center because it was a non-binding resolution several years ago on the ballot. And somehow, poof, we're paying for this and there's not a lot of the donations from what I've been seeing has not come in. And this is going to be I don't care how you slice and dice it, it's still going to be a hit on our taxes. Where many people, you talked about the downtown restaurants and the small businesses. A lot of us have been hurt because of the pandemic. A lot of us lost their jobs, had to get new jobs for less money. So how do we make up? We're now on that fixed income to make up the difference when our taxes go up. Now, with that being said, you had asked me, Mayor, when I literally ran into you at Whole Foods, and I complained about City Hall still being closed. Now, I've been back to work since June. I work in the retail sector. I'm wearing my mask because I have to wear a mask, which I think is hurting a lot of businesses too. And I think it was wrong with the alderman made the businesses become police. Why isn't City Hall finally open? You're in City Hall and let the people get into our building. We are paying for that building with our taxes. I've been the one who's been fighting for our students to get back to school. I'm hoping the numbers keep going down. So next week, we're starting to get our students back in school. It would be, thank the Lord that they're back in school, but we need to open up.
All right, Paul,
Paul,
well, let me answer some of that.
businesses
Paul,
downtown.
let me answer some of that. So,
Okay, Mayor, so that's
so what your, one of your questions, of course, is, one of your questions is related to City Hall.
Thank you, Mayor.
What? Excuse me. So one of your questions is related to City Hall. We are open by appointment. So we are taking people, so the basic approach here is to try to operate normally as much as possible while trying to keep members of the city staff and the public safe from the virus, from the pandemic, from COVID-19. Now, we've had more than one outbreak here in City Hall. And there's no question that, the virus has gotten in. Some people have gotten fairly serious cases as a result. So we are also making renovations to City Hall right now using some federal money that we've received that will enable the transactions at City Hall to take place in a safer way. For example, where vehicle registration takes place in the treasurer's office, there will be sort of individual cubicles, sort of like, in a doctor's office, and there will be a glass or a sneeze guard, and that will enable people to interact without the risk of reducing the risk of any transmission. And this may not be the last virus we face. So these are long-term good improvements. There are similar improvements being made down in the assessing office, in the city clerk. So there's work going on in City Hall. But in terms of the service to the customers, the residents, I asked you, well, Paula, is there any service you've wanted to get and you couldn't get it? And I guess I asked that of any resident because the vehicle registration is going on. We're limiting, we're doing it by appointment. We're allowing 5 people up to the 3rd floor, a temporary setup up there, 5 people at a time, and then there are 5 people waiting. And as people leave, others are brought in. Other services are rendered remotely. For example, all the building inspections and the like now are being done almost exclusively remotely. It seems to be working very well. The city clerk ran, 2 huge elections with thousands and thousands of absentee ballots. They're available. They did that. They're available by appointment to do marriage licenses and all that kind of thing. So the services are still being provided. It's just being provided in a different way. Now, of course, we all want to get back to normal, open the doors. And I'm confident that as time goes on, we'll be able to do that. But like in the treasurer's office, we want to finish the work. And, there have been it's an older building, various unexpected issues have come up. But the work in the city clerk's office is getting, excuse me, in the treasurer's office is getting close. And then they will go and end in assessing. And once those are done, then they'll go to the city clerk's office. Now, does anybody else have questions or thoughts? I could probably find another pre-submitted question if no one right on the call has anything you'd like to ask right now. One person asks about the tax rate and asks, well, why have the taxes gone up over the last couple of years? The total amount that over the last 2 years the taxes gone up is, I think it's 2.6 and then unfortunately 3.9, which equals 6.5. Now that's percent over 2 years. Now the main driver of that has been rapidly increasing healthcare costs. We saw healthcare costs rise 20% over 2 years. That amounts to over $6 million and close to 6.5 million. Now 6.5 million on the tax rate is about 3%. So the amount, of the increase in taxes over the last 2 years, about half of that is due to city health, the increase in city healthcare costs. Now, of course, we have adopted a plan. We've come forward with a plan of action to address that, the rapidly increasing healthcare costs. And so what we did is we worked with experts and we came up with a revised HMO plan. And we're asking city employees to adopt that plan. And I could explain the details, but it in many ways benefits the employee and it benefits the city. The amount that the employee has to pay per week actually goes down. And the employees have been very cooperative. A bunch of employee unions have agreed to it, about 5, I think, plus some other city hall workers. We have also, but we need that to be adopted for all city employees, no exclusions, no exceptions. We need the Board of Aldermen to back us up on that. And that is definitely affecting, even the work we've done on that so far has affected the rate of increase. So this coming year, we're going to see a much lower rate of increase than we've seen in the past. Another thing we're doing is there's a medical savings plan, and I could explain the details there too, but it it's a higher deductible, but the city contributes to that deductible, and it incentivizes people to do a little bit of price shopping. If you need a test, an x-ray, you might, if you go to, a certain medical provider, it might be, I'm just making these numbers up, $500, but another one might be $300. The higher deductible medical savings plan creates incentives to do that price shopping, and we're encouraging employees to take a look at that plan, and many employees have actually joined that. That saves the city's money. We've got something called Smart Shopper, which gives a small bonus to people who do find a cost-saving approach. Again, a test. If they save $100, they might get a small bonus of 20 or something like that. We share the lower cost with them. So in many ways, but that has been the main driver of the tax rate over the last 2 years. Now this next year coming up, the main thing is definitely this downshifting from the state of New Hampshire. That's a huge, huge challenge. $11 million hit, nearly 12 in 1 year. That's between 5 and 6% on the tax rate. I mean, they always say in Concord, oh, no new taxes. Well, that is total baloney. They have been raising property taxes, year after year after year through these kind of devices. As I said, 4.4 million on the pensions. That will make our pension bill to the state almost $30 million, and a $7 million reduction in school aid. And I was just looking back to some history, just another example, and we could probably talk all night about this. Rooms and meals tax. The deal with rooms and meals tax was 40% was supposed to go to the communities. 40%. That was frozen. The amount was frozen. So what does that cost? Just that rooms and meals tax issue. What does that cost the taxpayers of Nashua? $34 million. That's the amount we would have received with rooms and meals tax in addition to what we've gotten if the 40% commitment had been kept. Same with the pensions. They got the city into the state pension system and all the other communities by saying, okay, we'll pay 35% of your costs. And they did that for decades, but then they stopped. That has cost you, the taxpayers of Nashua, a cumulative total of $74 million. So the idea that no new taxes at the state level, that's not accurate at all. Property taxes are being pushed up. Every time there's a problem, they just push up property taxes. That's a bit of a pet peeve of mine, so I apologize for possibly ranting on that too long. But Ernie is very familiar with this problem. He's seen it firsthand, and so we're working hard with our legislative delegation to try to get some relief. Now, does anybody have questions? Again, anybody on the call? Is anybody from the legislature, Mike Peterson or Dan? I think I saw Dan Toomey. Do you want to tell us anything about Concord and what you're working on there?
Mayor, Dan had to sign off and go to a different meeting.
And this is Mike Peterson.
Yeah, I'm one of your Ward 5 state representatives, and there are a number of bills at the State House which affect the cities and towns, and there will be a large session meeting held at a giant facility with safe spacing February 24th and 25th. So we'll see how that goes. And of course, the Nashua legislative team is in the minority currently at the State House, but we will vote the best interest of the city of Nashua and see how it turns out, because other cities and towns are also affected by the votes that take place at the State House. They suffer the same circumstances.
So a couple of the bills that for example, what are some of these bills? There are a lot of them, but bills on both the House and Senate side would restore part of that 35%, part of it. The 35% that was promised when we got into the pension system. One bill would restore 5% of the 35, the other 15. Now, we don't know if those are going to be successful. And there are bills that would hold school aid at the same level and not reduce the 7 million that I spoke about. That is pending in the House, and we'll see how that goes. There's another bill to make good on the rooms and meals tax, to actually give us the 40% that they were supposed to. So we'll see what happens with all of those. Now, we did get a question from David Mahoney, and he says he received a letter, and this is about the revaluation that's going on. The city is required to do a revaluation of the property every 5 years. And we've been told that we should do a full measure and list, which means a physical inspection of properties. There's a state agency called the Department of Revenue Administration and another entity, kind of a court, called the Board of Land and Tax Appeals, and they want a full measure and list. And they have the authority to require that. The city has not done a so-called full measure and list physical inspection of properties since 1991. All of the revaluations have been so-called statistical revaluations, looking at market data and things like that, but without going out and visiting every home, every property. Now, he asks, what will the inspectors be looking for? Why is it necessary for them to enter the homes instead of asking for information about home features and improvements? He's he's wondering, you know, some people don't want people coming into their homes. Now, you don't have to say yes, so it's voluntary, but I think it's in everybody's interest that you do let them in, let people in. Although now with COVID, we're not even trying to go in. They're just doing this is a contractor is doing this, an outside firm, but they're just making outside inspections right now. But we have Kim Kleiner, who's the Administrative Services Director, on the call, and maybe she can tell you a little bit more about the revaluation process.
Kim, you're muted.
Thank you, Lisa. Good evening. My name's Kim Kleiner. As Mayor Don just said, we do have a contractor, Vision Government Solutions, that is undertaking the full revaluation. On our website, we have updates that we receive bi-weekly that we post there for anyone that would like to read where they are, how many homes they've currently inspected. Right now it is external inspections only, and that is as stated by the state. So we follow the protocols that the Department of Revenue and Administration set for us. Generally, when assessors, or in this case, a contractor, go into your home, the things that they're looking for is what they call grade and condition of features. So certainly things like the number of bedrooms and the number of bathrooms and things of that sort, residents may be able to provide us. But when you're talking about grade and condition, you're looking for uniformity, and these assessors are trained in making sure that they're using uniformity when they look at those particular features. So that's why sometimes it's better that an assessor gains entry to the home. Certainly, if the DRA does not change the protocols, then we will be working on an alternative method of gaining that information, such as letters and questionnaires.
Just again on this sort of downshifting thing. Okay, here's another example. This isn't something we particularly want to do, this full measure and list. It costs $1.5 million with an outside contractor. But we've been ordered by the state of New Hampshire to do this. Now, do they pay for that? Absolutely not. You pay for it. Now, again, it's certainly, we want to keep up with the properties. We want all the assessments to be fair, but here's an example where the state tells you to do something, it costs a lot of money, you have to do it, and you know, it just costs the taxpayers, the property taxpayers. Now, I wanted to get back to one thing that Paula asked about, Paula Johnson. She asked about donations to the Performing Arts Center. The condition that was placed on the proceeding with the project is that we obtained $4 million, we, the city, of outside money before proceeding, and we did that. There was a private fundraising group that raised a lot of money, some large private donations, and they're still proceeding. They're still doing that and raising more money. And we received an award of some so-called new market tax credits, which together totaled $4 million, and I think that number is climbing. So we did meet the condition. People have contributed. Some people significant amounts, and I just want to make it clear that that had been accomplished. Now, any other questions or comments? I'm looking over. One person asked Christine Carroll about mattresses that have been left on the street. Now, not in Ward 5, but downtown. Now, of course, these are very unsightly items. And technically, when a resident wants a large item to be picked up, a washing machine or a mattress or something like that, they're supposed to call for a special pickup, and those usually are run not during the winter because of the interference with the snow and all that kind of thing. But we do encounter more, very frequently, pretty frequently, situations where someone just dumps this stuff on the side of the road or on a sidewalk on, public way, and, it's very unsightly. So when I see it, I talk with Lisa. I'm sure she gets other calls, and if there's something just left out there by someone who's moved out or something like that, we usually go pick it up, or someone from Public Works goes and picks it up. This one, Lisa, I don't know if she gives us a specific location. She says Walnut Street. In any event, if we knew the specific location, we could probably pick that up. We don't like it when people leave this kind of junk around the streets. People should be handling it on their own, but on the other hand, we don't want to, have the neighborhoods be all littered with these very unsightly items. I just think it drags the neighborhoods down. So we try to get people to call, but in certain circumstances, we just pick up items. Now, anybody, we've got Alderman Jettie raising his virtual hand. So Ernie.
Yes, before this ended, I wanted to make a comment. Since I became an alderman about 3 years ago now, I've learned that this city is a complaint-driven operation. We don't have the staff or the money to hire the staff to enforce all of the ordinances and all of the laws. I found out that the city reacts to complaints. So, for example, it doesn't seem like it now, but spring is coming, and when that comes, there'll be a lot of potholes, and so the city has a great system. I don't know if you have time to let Lisa explain that, but the city has a system where you can go on your computer and you can, draw, take that, access a map and put a marker on a particular road where there's a pothole or any other problem that you see. And of course, you can always call by telephone. And I have found that they are very responsive to complaints. Same thing with the police. I've heard many people say, as we've considered various ordinances, oh, the police don't have time to deal with that sort of thing. They're too busy doing other things. Well, I'm sure the police who are on this call will confirm this. And the chief himself has told me that the police department is never too busy to respond to calls. So if you have, if there's something going on in your neighborhood that you feel is a violation of the law, don't be reluctant to call the police. The police can't do anything about it unless they know about it. So if someone is setting fireworks off in your neighborhood that you object to, and if you can identify, if you can say where it is, you don't even have to give your name. You can do it anonymously. The police will come and check it out. Same thing with other complaints. The police are there. The chief tells me the police are there to enforce the laws and to respond to citizen complaints. And he has told me time and time again, tell the people, don't ever be reluctant to make a call. That's what the police are there for. And I also wanted to take the chance to make sure that people know, when you talk about taxes, if you feel that your property is being unfairly assessed. You know, the value that's put on your property is inappropriate. You have to, we can't do anything about that unless you file for an abatement. And the time limit for the abatement is March 1st. The application is not that difficult, and the assessing department will actually help you fill it out. And but you've got to get it in before March 1st, or this, you know, that we can't do anything about that. And I think you know, Kim Kleiner is on the call, and she can correct me if I'm wrong about this, but there are also lots of exemptions that people are entitled to: the elderly, veterans, people who are handicapped, and but you have to apply for those exemptions. And I think the date for that is April 1st. And please correct me if I'm wrong about that, Ms. Kleiner, but the all of this information is on the city website. If you go to the assessing department, it's there. It's not a secret. If you're entitled to it, you deserve it, and you ought to get it, but you've got to apply for it. So thank you, Mayor, for letting me address those.
You Ernie mentioned the pothole reporting process. I'm going to turn it over to Lisa to go explain that in a minute. But I did want to mention that we have, together working with the aldermen, we have addressed through a paving plan of action what used to be the crumbling nature of Nashua streets. Now we over the past 5 years or so, 4 years, we've paved about 100 miles of streets. There are 300 miles of streets in Nashua. We've also done crack sealing. That means filling up the cracks with kind of a asphalty material that 70 miles of street. That very cheap compared to paving, but it preserves a street for about 5 years so that we can get to pave it. So we've made some major progress there. So hopefully there'll be less potholes, but Lisa, but we know there will be potholes. I mean, there's no question about that. So there is a way to report potholes over the internet, or you can call in. So Lisa, why don't you give us tell us how to do that.
Oh, the best way actually to contact Public Works for anything potholes or any other issue is DPW request at nashuanh.gov. That's the best place. It goes to a number of us, and so it has high visibility, and you'll get a very quick response that way. So again, DPW request at nashuanh.gov is the best place to reach us.
And you can always call the mayor's office as well if you talk to Cheryl or Cecilia or someone like that, and you know, we can get to Public Works. Now, Mike Peterson has his hand up.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to report some positive feedback. A couple weeks ago, I received an email from a person from Massachusetts whose mother, 93-year-old mother, is a resident at the Huntington Senior Center. And she was concerned she was going to have to take her mother, who's been under quarantine since last March, out into the cold with strangers to another part of town to get her inoculation. So I wrote a letter to Bobby Bagley, the public health director, about this situation. And wouldn't you know, 3 days later, the city of Nashua sent an inoculation team down to the Huntington and gave everybody their COVID inoculations. So it worked out. So I just wanted to give that feedback that the public health department has been very responsive in following through with the COVID vaccinations and the other vaccination programs that they've been administering.
Well, public health has been working very hard, you know, has done wonderful work over the last 12 months. Again, they have been inoculating people, as you said, in some of the kind of high risk population, people in nursing homes and the like. And of course, you know, we're delivering all the vaccine doses we can get. Those are allocated by the state of New Hampshire, and the whole vaccination procedure is set up by and run by the state of New Hampshire. But we have the vaccination clinic going on at Nashua South, where, you know, once you get registered and get an appointment, people go out there. Hundreds of people a day are getting vaccinated out there. Now, but thank you, Mike, for, we'll pass that on to Bobby. I'm sure she'll be glad to hear that.
Thank you.
Gloria McCarthy has her hand up.
Yes, this is basically regarding the shifting of the tax burden to the city from the state. Has any attempt or any thought been given to getting together with other delegations from other cities that are being affected this way? Because you hear the, you know, safety in numbers. So if there are more cities that are having this problem, everybody votes the same way. Is there some way that that could change the balance?
Yes, definitely. So I've been periodically, I mean, every couple of weeks, a meeting with mayors from around the state, really all of them, Keene to Berlin to Portsmouth, Concord, Manchester. And on a couple of issues, we have, on several issues, we've written letters and, you know, joint letters, and then encouraging our delegations to work towards specific issues. And the things we've been most focused on are these big cost items, the stuff that's coming up right now, the pension issue, the school aid. One thing that people maybe don't totally understand about the reduction in school aid, that the automatic assumption is, well, it's because of a reduction in enrollment. A big part of it is a reduction, an artificial reduction in the amount of free and reduced lunch children. So the city gets, and all communities in New Hampshire, you know, get a certain amount of aid based on a number of free and reduced lunch kids. And these are, you know, basically kids whose families are struggling economically. And in order to qualify, you need to fill out paperwork, income verifications and things like that. So because of the pandemic, the federal government, Department of Agriculture, I believe, made all the lunches free. So everybody now can get a free lunch. Now that's a good thing, but an unintended consequence is that the families who wanted to, you know, had to fill out paperwork before to qualify for say a free meals, free lunches, no longer had to do the paperwork. So the number of people that the school department could coax to do the paperwork has certainly fallen by a considerable number. And the state is treating that as less free and reduced lunch kids. Now we may have more kids, not less, but unless we have the paperwork filled out, at least under the current system, we lose that aid. There's also a temporary decline in most of the enrollment decline is occurring in the kindergarten and pre-kindergarten, where, you know, parents, since it's remote, you know, they just aren't bringing their kids in, you know, for kindergarten. But I think you will see that all these kids will return, and therefore we're trying to address this rather steep revenue decline, you know, aid decline during the pandemic. Now, I think we've answered all. I don't see any more hands raised. As I said at the beginning, we try to, you know, finish up in a little less, an hour, a little bit more, in order to, in the hopes that you'll come back next time. We don't want you to, these Zoom meetings get a little tedious after a while. It's much better to meet in person. But we appreciate your coming on. We appreciate your interest in the city. We all love Nashua, and we're all working to make it, you know, even a better place to live. So I appreciate all of your commitment, our state reps, members of the Board of Aldermen, Ernie, and everybody who is working all the time to just try to move our community forward. We will follow up on the questions that have come in. Thank you to Lisa, to Kim Kleiner, to the police department, and all those who joined the call. And so with that, we will conclude, and I just wish you a good evening. Bye-bye.